When you hear the rhythm, start to move.
Hi everyone, my name is Varia and this is Shameless Careers, a podcast about career change. Today, I'm super excited to interview Victoria Zimmer. Victoria runs her own company, Love Life Retreats, and the company is focused on self-discovery, transformative experiences, and holistic well-being. Victoria is an internationally recognized yoga teacher and retreat facilitator with nearly 2 decades of experience. She's also a lead trainer for yoga, mindfulness, and meditation at London Wellbeing Academy. And she's an author of a number of online yoga and meditation programs. So, Victoria, thank you so much for being here. And I think we should discuss 3 areas that I'm personally super interested in, and I think the audience would love to find out. First of all, it's your personal journey, because it started not in mindfulness, it started in computer science. And so I would love to see how have you discovered your own path towards mindfulness, yoga, spirituality, towards something that you love doing. Secondly, I would love to explore why it's important to consider mindfulness and spiritual practices if you feel stuck in your career and you feel like you're not living your purpose. Because a lot of people may not even be aware how important it is. They may be skeptical about it. And quite frankly, they've never thought trying out something like this. So I would love to explore why they should consider trying something like that. And finally, I would love to speak to you about some yoga philosophy concepts that we could apply in our day-to-day lives to live more authentically. Because oftentimes I feel we're distracted by some external factors, whether it's notions, commonly acceptable notions of success, validation of others, etc. But it's really important to live authentically and true to ourselves and resist this type of pressures. So I'd love to ask, based on your experience and your knowledge of yoga philosophy, what kind of advice and daily practices you would recommend for people to follow to live more authentically. So thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to start.
Thank you so much, Vari. It's a pleasure being here. And I love all of your questions. I think they're very deep and very important questions that we should be reflecting on daily life, or from day to day. So where do we begin? Which question do you want me to start first with? My personal journey.
Yes, let's start with your personal journey, and specifically how you studied computer science degree. So
Yes.
what was your journey into mindfulness? What has it been like? How did you discover it for yourself, and how did you decide to build your life and path around that space?
Yeah. Well, I mean, without going too deep into the story, but basically, I think I followed what everyone else follows these days, a template that we're all given at school. We have the same education system for everyone around the world, pretty much. We study the same subjects, we undergo the same tests, and then we're given a few choices, but then we have the priority choices, which would be, economics, engineering, mathematics, teaching, soliciting, etc., etc. So it just turns out that when I was studying at school, my main subject that I was focusing on and was good at was mathematics and physics. And then when my school had a program of going into university, the most prestigious faculty at that time was computer science. And then I just followed that path. It was really easy. I got my exams and I went straight into it. But then, as what a lot of us don't have a chance to do is actually to reflect on between school and higher education, or maybe even after higher education, if the path that we have chosen, like automatically almost, or kind of been pushed into by our education system or our parents, is the path that we want to pursue. So I had I've been very lucky with my family, because when I decided that what I'm doing is actually not interesting me at that point in time, so I've finished 3 years of university first of all, and then I decided to go and travel, because I wasn't satisfied with the level of interest that I had for the subjects that I was studying, and because that kind of inner dissatisfaction at the age of 19 wasn't fulfilled by anything that was in front of me, I decided to travel the world, and that's when I went to America first. And when I went there, I was kind of still exploring my journey and adapting. I was still quite young on my path. And I was personally interested in physical well-being, and physical well-being, fitness at that time was kind of up and rising career. Personal training was up and rising career. And because I was interested in it, I thought that it's something that I could get others interested in. So I started pursuing it. So I got my first qualification as a personal trainer, first of all. I was also a competitive martial art practitioner. So I had dojo, I was practicing karate, I was going to the competitions, and I was studying to become a personal trainer. Again, by choice of, my personal choice or luck, I was living at that time in a very affluent area in the United States. I had quite a lot of affluent people around me. So when I started my personal training career, it was already quite a good start. But then, again, when I choose to do something with other people, it's always based on my personal journey. Just this is by my design. I have to experience it myself first. And then if I feel the benefits from it, then I would like to share it with others immediately. And when I was practicing personal training and training myself and training my people, I've noticed that the physical well-being is very strongly connected at that time. It was new to me at first, to mental well-being and the mindset. So what we think, what distracts us, what motivates us, and then how that would progress into physical well-being and health. So my personal mental health was kind of challenged at that time because, again, I had this kind of feeling of inner dissatisfaction, even though I've chosen the career that was interesting for me and I really wanted to pursue it, but there was something else that was missing. So I started exploring further, and then as I traveled around the world and I came across positive mental attitude at that time, then I discovered yoga, which came very interestingly into my life, kind of almost like this is your path. But I don't want to say that yoga is the only path, nor meditation is the only path, but it's just having different vehicles that help you to achieve that inner satisfaction and feeling of content. So, and basically my journey from there onwards, it was all about understanding the interconnectedness of physical well-being, mental well-being, then emotional well-being, emotional intelligence, and then moving into spirituality, understanding what spirituality is, and how to bring it into your life without feeling that you are disconnected from the rest of the world. And then all the practices, the courses, accreditations, qualifications that I was getting there was to help me understand myself better, and then also to deliver to my clients, my students around the world, to help them to feel content and peaceful and accomplished and being, following their path.
And looking back to the time when you were a bit dissatisfied, looking back, can you answer the question now? What was missing back then, and how your spiritual journey has helped you address this dissatisfaction?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, to some of my students, it's the fragmented vision of our life where we see everything separately. Like, our job is separate from our personal life is separate from our life with our partners or with our families. Like, we kind of compartmentalize everything. From that perspective, we also look at ourselves differently. We think if something is wrong with our body, we need to fix the body. We never look up until to our mind, for example, or our thought process and how our thought process influences our actions and how our actions form our life. So we look at everything separately. It's like even if we look, for example, at the medical system. If it's your heart, we're going to the heart doctor. Yeah. So if we just use very simple terms, if it's our mind, we go to psychologist. If it's our, let's say, skin, we go to dermatologist. But in reality, everything is interconnected, and your body is should be your first point of contact when something goes wrong, whether it's on physical level or mental level or mind level. We always go to our body first, and we listen to what it says. And in order for us to understand what our body says, we need to create a moment of quietude to actually learn the language of our body, and then through that we can travel into the mind, and then we can start changing the patterns in our mind. And once we fix the patterns in our mind, then our body responds either it's the right path or the wrong path, and then we act from that perspective, from that point. So it's understanding that interconnectedness, first of all, within yourself, so that you are a wholesome being But then also, when you are trying to change something in your life, we often think that in order for us to change something in our life, we need to go externally and we need to rearrange circumstances, we need to change people, we need to change relationships. Yes, that all has place, but it's about 20% of it. 80% is what you change and on the inside, how your thoughts, your words, and your actions follow this congruent kind of path where everything is aligned, where your body, your mind, your thoughts together, unified. And then from that perspective, you can create that the life that you want or the sensations that you want to feel in your life. And then you go out into the world, and those 20% is that action that you follow through.
And let's take a look at what it looks like in practice when people come to your retreat. I have heard it from many people and read it in many books, actually about career change as well, that to find some breakthrough insights, it's really valuable to change the environment that you're in. And for example, I had a guest in the studio previously who said that, for example, his decision to leave his career at a big corporate and start his own business came when he went hiking with friends and was in mountains. And a lot of books recommend to really change the setting, to find out about something about yourself that you wouldn't normally find in your day-to-day life. So is it something that you observe as well with people who come to your retreats, and why do you think is this happening?
100%. The answer is yes, absolutely. You do need to change your environment because we don't always recognize how our environment influences on our thought process and on our lives. And that could be on the subconscious level, but if we go, like, for example, on more scientific approach or more mindful approach, it's just the wave frequency of our brain. We normally operate on the beta state, which is the kind of our problem solving, day-to-day activities, or gamma brain waves, which is the problem-solving frequency. Both of them are quite fast frequencies of our brain, which means we always in the process of action, reaction, or problem solving. Whereas when you are taking yourself out of your day-to-day activities, and if you, let's say, you don't have a habit of creating that time for yourself in your day-to-day life when you can relax and enter what we call the alpha state or the alpha waves, which is kind of relaxed state of mind. And in the relaxed state of mind, that's when we start receiving creative solutions for our problems rather than trying to force them from a point of action and reaction. So to explain it a little bit differently is when you are in order for you to create, for example, you need to be in the relaxed state, and relaxed means expansive. So kind of you're expanding the field of possibilities, let's put it this way. When you are in the problem-solving mode, you are in a contracted state, and that also reflects in your body. So you contracted, therefore you kind of closing yourself up from creative solutions, from people, from different energies. So between that contractive and relaxed state, this is where your creative solutions and your authentic self and your authentic path comes into your life. So when you leave your normal environment, whether it's influenced consciously or subconsciously, you understand that it's not the right environment for you to find the solution or to find yourself or to reconnect with your authentic path, and you go away. So you change the environment, you remove anything that potentially could cause you to contract and stay tensed, whether it's your work, relationships, or just your own thoughts. And then why retreats are good, you have certain practices that help you to relax, because sometimes, even when you go on holiday, sometimes on the first day, you can't relax. It takes you 2 to 3 days to relax fully. So when you go on the retreat, it works a little bit faster, but it also directs your energy. So when you are relaxed, then the practices help you to reconnect with what you really want. And interestingly enough, during most of the retreats, the first 3 days, people feel really relaxed and happy because everything is good. But then something happens. And that something happens is when the feelings that they were suppressing, they start to come up. And that could be irritation, it could be anger, it could be frustration, it could be all of those emotions that they were suppressing, but they weren't noticing that they were suppressing, but they were creating this tension in the body. So in the moment where, let's say, for example, during yoga practice, we relax the body. And remember I said about the body, how it holds everything. And then you kind of like create that space to process all of those emotions that were causing you contraction and this kind of problem solving mode. And then you have the space and time to let it go. And once you let it go, then you create more space for other things to come to you, which you wouldn't be able otherwise to receive if you were in that contracted state. So it's normal process to go away, put yourself into a new environment, go through the practices that help you to relax the body, relax the mind, and then through that you create space for all those things or answers that you were looking for in day-to-day life, but you couldn't find them because you didn't have space to receive them or the mindset to be receptive.
And how often do you see people who come to your retreats who feel like stuck in their career, don't know what their purpose is, and this starts coming out during this process that you've just described?
Most of the times. People do come with the problems is normally either job, path, or relationships, and feeling lost. Like, especially lately in the last couple of years, where a lot of us kind of followed through that template that I was telling you about, that I also started with in life, and they go through that template. So if you've chosen once to become a doctor, and then let's say 10 years later, you don't want to be a doctor, but you dedicated 10 years of your life to be the doctor. So you're almost like forcing yourself and not giving yourself a choice to explore, is this actually what I want to do? And I think this is the cause of depression and dissatisfaction for a lot of people, because if this is not your path, you will never be good at what you do, because the vocation has to be aligned with your feeling of joy. So if you're not joyful, anything that you do, if you've chosen that one path of your career, you will not be delivering from the place of joy to others. Therefore, you will not be happy, and then the vibrations that you will be sending out will not be happy. And then we just, like, if every single person does not what they meant to do, we're creating a very unhappy world. If we change that and everyone questions, is this what I want to do, and changing their career path and following what they're find joyful to do in their lives, then more people will be joyful and happy, and then we change the vibration of our world. So it's one person at a time. It's important that we all go back and question, is what I'm doing right now, is that bringing me joy? Is it bringing joy to others? And if it's not, why not? And then the next step would be to find, your own path.
I completely agree with you, and I also totally share the philosophy that if all the people were doing something that they see meaning in for themselves, and they're doing it for this reason versus being validated by others, ticking the societal box of prestige and successful career, I think, first of all, there would be so many happy people that would also create so many amazing things, because I think what you produce and what you do because of external factors versus if you see beauty in it and believe in it internally, I think these are two fundamentally different things. So I think that would bring benefits to both us as individuals, but also to the world overall, because we would unleash a lot of creative potential. And can you tell me a bit more about how, I guess, based on what you see among people who come with this type of problems, what's usually holding them back? What type of beliefs about themselves are holding them back? Because we need to understand the core of the problem before we see how different mindfulness practices that you have described can help address them.
Well, I mean, when you talk about belief system, it's going back to that fear. Like you said it several times yourself, it's the validation of others, it's the disappointment, it's the definition of success and failure. And because we normally program that you're either successful or you're failure. Yeah? So there is nothing in between. But there's so many things in between. And also the definition of success is changing now, and I think it's important for everyone to understand what success means to them. And for some, success means material possessions or amount of money in their bank account. But then they should ask themselves, does it give them that satisfaction and happiness? Like, is their success means you have all you need, but you're not feeling happy? Or does success means feeling accomplished in certain areas, but then once you're feeling accomplished, do you feel happy? Is that what you wanted to have? Is that your personal desire? Or are you trying to impress someone, or you're trying to prove something to someone, which is often the case, whether it's our parents or our partners or our colleagues. But it's that level of proving your worthiness instead of understanding your worthiness and really feeling your worthiness. So when you understand your worthiness, you don't need to prove anything to anyone, which means even if you need to change something in your life, like you choose one career path and then you decide to change it, it's okay. It's okay to try. It's okay to be curious and try different things. And again, going back to that fragmented vision of our lives, I often use example of Leonardo da Vinci. So Leonardo da Vinci, most people know him as artist, right? Created beautiful sculptures and paintings, but he was also a philosopher. He was also a mathematician. He was also a scientist. He studied anatomy. He was dissecting the body. So he was doing all these things because he wanted to explore and understand himself and the world and how the world works. So he wasn't talking about limiting beliefs, he wasn't limiting himself to one avenue of what he was doing in his life. He was using different avenues, and he was studying and then putting it all together in his mind so he could understand the world. But also he wasn't thinking about achieving something like I need to be someone, I need to prove something to someone. He was just living his life, and then he was following his authentic path, and then recognition came later, as for a lot of artists. But as long as you enjoy the journey and you understand what you do and how you do, it has to be a personal journey coming from the place of understanding your worthiness and not needing to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah, it is so amazing. And I think what kind of the core of the problem is that basically the starting point is that something is wrong with us. And then as a result, you see, okay, how do I prove that I'm like competent, successful, that I can achieve some stuff, etc. And as a result, you kind of start optimizing for expectations of others. For example, it can manifest in the degree. Like, what's the most prestigious degree? Okay, because I want to prove that I'm competent, I want to go to the most prestigious degree so that everyone can say, okay, you're fine. But if our starting point was that, okay, exactly like you say, everything is fine with us, we're worth, we have self-worth, we know what we're worth from the very beginning. So then the end goal is not about looking for someone who can validate you, but it's more around, okay, what am I interested in? What do I believe in? And this type of mindset can bring you to completely different and actually sometimes even more amazing places versus just following the societal expectations. It will be a journey with a lot of uncertainty because you don't know what you will discover. But ultimately, I can see so much potential to create something unique and very different when you follow your authentic path, which comes back to what you said, that oftentimes it's this type of artists who get recognition and who are like introducing something new, but you can only introduce it when you don't follow the kind of the usual traditional path, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything that you say. Yeah.
And can you tell me how, so during these retreats, could you tell me a bit more about the practices that help you bring this sense of self-worth that may have been lost throughout your career journey? What does it look like in practice?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything that, like, I wouldn't say that there is something that we do at the retreats that would be coming as news to a lot of people, at least in my environment. But having the moment of quietude in the morning, which is your meditation, your breathing exercises, and breath is that thing that kind of connects us with our internal environment and our external environment. You do yoga practice, and the yoga practice, I teach Tantra yoga practice, which means it's all about shifting the energy in the body and creating that relaxed state of mind. We also use sacred geometry, and sacred geometry is like a blueprint of the universe creation. It's all the patterns that everything that exists in the universe follows. We use practices of contemplation, mindfulness. Yeah, so when you observe your environment, there are different tools that I use, but all of them are vehicles that help you to create this consistent practice during the retreat, and through that consistency and repetition, where your mind starts to feel relaxed with the practice itself, and it uses it as a vehicle to get the answers that you were searching for. Sometimes people can get frustrated. For example, if someone used to a fast-paced environment and constantly being on the move, and their ways of relaxing is doing something very active as well, and they could get frustrated with the times when they need to just pause and do something very slow. But that's the whole point of slowing down, so that you can slow down your brain waves, so that you can create that space. So and then the other one is often okay, so now we've done this, what is the next thing? And I always say, well, we need to be consistent. Yes, so if you want to achieve a result, or if you want to master something, you need to create consistency and repetition, because once you create consistency and repetition, your brain can again relax. So you're not in this process of remembering or understanding or trying to make sense of something. You're able just to follow that pattern, and then through that pattern you create that space for yourself to be. So during the retreats, we work with the physical body, with the mental body, which means it would be the guided meditation, for example, or drawing of the mandalas or yantras, which work together with the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. So you put the logic, the structure together with the creative expression of yourself. And that's a lot of the time also like another obstacle, because in our modern world, we're very masculine energy oriented, both, all genders, if you say, because it's all about structure, vector energy. It's most efficient way of doing something, and we're always trying to strive for more efficiency rather than creativity and enjoyment of the journey. So during the retreats, of course, we try to balance that energy. So we still have structure of some sorts, but at the same time we create space for unexpected and spontaneous experiences. And that's another point of frustration sometimes for people. And I'm saying that because I want everyone to kind of manage expectations when you come to the retreat. It's not going to be what you expect. So that's the first point. And often I don't say exactly the journey, even though I list certain things on the website, for example, but I never follow them to the dot, because I don't want them to expect something, because it's good to have a little bit of uncertainty, because when you're uncertain and you don't have this fully booked schedule, you open yourself up for something unexpected, perhaps even better than you would hope for or planned for yourself, because we can only plan or hope for based on our previous experiences and the summary of our experiences. So it's good to have some creativity, some spontaneity, and have curiosity to explore how you will be reacting to that. And it's interesting because when you are in the day-to-day life, you react to the same situation very different when you are in the retreat, for example. And I had people who would receive, let's say, a certain email on a plane on the way to the retreat, and they don't reply to that email, but they were saying that in their head they were replying really angry and really frustrated and really like pushing back. And then after the retreat, they wrote a really nice email that went really well and harmoniously and brought them exactly the result that they wanted to have. It's because they didn't react. They gave themselves time to absorb, to understand what the person wants, to understand what they want, and then to create this alignment between what needs to happen and what is happening.
Speaking of reactions of people during the retreats, how do people typically respond to these experiences? And can you share some maybe stories around what type of transformations have you observed among people, particularly when it comes to like things like career paths, looking for purpose, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, lots of great examples. Well, it's interesting because it depends who comes to you. Like sometimes people come to me for the physical experience. So they just want to practice yoga and then see how it's going to influence their body. But then, of course, yoga doesn't just influence the body, it influences the mind, the mindset, and the thought process. And let's say someone who owns a company and has very practical vision of how they need to run the company after introducing spirituality and retreats on consistent basis into their life, they now look at different ways of managing people in their company. They become less reactive, more thoughtful, more mindful, and they serve better in their position to the people who are their employees, basically. Yeah. So, and then I also have people who, let's say they come to me and they have an issue with choosing the right project on which they want to work, if it's something like a consultancy base. And let's say one project would bring them more joy and excitement, but it would be for less compensation, less amount of money. And then another project would be for higher amount of money, but it's going to be less aligned with how they feel in the moment in time. And that's important because during the retreats, people start to feel really strongly reactions where it's when it's aligned with what they want to do and when it's not aligned. And whether what they do has a positive impact on the bigger picture, like on the society, or if it has just impact on the company and the profitability of the company. And so what happens is that people start to choose more and more projects that they feel aligned with and more like following their heart rather than their mind. And then they notice that as they go through that path, they feel more relaxed, more creative, which means more projects of that type come into their life. So they feel abundant, but they're also enjoying the process rather than going through the mind for more profitability, but then kind of forcing themselves through it and kind of channeling and get more that masculine energy of structure and force rather than creative and joyful and nurturing energy of the heart.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I can totally see how in a less relaxed environment in our day-to-day, we would often choose like something that brings immediate benefits, like profits to your company, something that again will give you success, validation, etc. But then I think we just don't realize the cost that we pay. Like at some point it does backfire, right? If you live not in an alignment with who you are and or you're doing something to get this external validation, then it means you always expect this validation, and at some point you get frustrated if you don't get it. And yeah, I don't know. That's why then we come back to the beginning of the conversation. Why so many people are dissatisfied and feel like they need to change and feel like they're lost is exactly because so often we have been making choices towards something else without seeing this purpose in something for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you were saying that, it's very important that I say the most honest assessment of your state of mind is when you are left alone with yourself. And how do you feel about your thoughts? How do you feel about your life, about your relationships? And a lot of the times these days, especially, people are very afraid to be alone. And I'm not saying just, like being for a few hours by yourself, but even like, for example, if someone struggles with the relationships, and my first advice is always observing the pattern. And I do have a lot of clients that I observe for years, and they have this pattern of consistently going into wrong relationships and constantly being hurt, and then feeling that they need another person to kind of fulfill them and make them feel happy. And then they go into another relationship like as soon as they got out from the first relationship, or the job as well. So the job search is, so it's all connected, that, like I said to you before. So you do one job, then you quit the job because you're not happy in that job, then you find another job, then you quit that job, or you get fired because it's not your path. So, and they never or afraid to give themselves that space to really sit still for a month, let's say, and really understand what they want to do or who they want to attract into their lives. And that's fear of staying alone pushes them consistently to move and act and do rather than be. So during the retreats, we learn how to introduce more being into their lives and less doing. And during that time when being, that's when we start really understand what is our authentic path.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to what you've said around how much it's the fear that's kind of pushing us towards action straight away. Because I even I know people, and sometimes I probably am guilty of that myself. is that when you sit still, you feel like, okay, but I'm not doing something, and I should be producing. I should be like everyone is moving forward. And I think like if we look very deeply, the fundamental fear is that you kind of are worried that if you stop, like you will be like no one, and kind of this point around self-worth that we were discussing in the beginning, that's ultimately what drives all of these behaviors. Because if you feel like you're not producing, you're not proving yourself, yeah, who are you? You are no one. You are not an accomplished person. And I do feel that we can't fully blame individuals on this, because especially in big cities, we do live in a very competitive environment, especially in like certain competitive industries. Like all the narratives from the university is all about like, okay, what's the most prestigious path? Where do like smart people go? In within the career, everything is built out very cleverly within capitalism. There is all this set of promotions, and again, if you don't get promoted, like, who are you? Are you? What's your self-worth? Like, I think there is a lot of things in society that are built around the fact that you should feel like you are not worthwhile unless you kind of prove yourself. And I think it's very difficult to allow yourself the space that we're talking about now to kind of just be, because this idea of like, okay, I'm enough just because of who I am, and I can explore my creativity, take time, which may or may not bring results. I mean, you should have such a sense of wealth or self-worth to be able to allow it. Like, I'm not surprised that so many people just find it so difficult, you know?
Absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head, because when people sit still or do something creative that doesn't bring them professional result or like an instant satisfaction, they feel like they're wasting their time.
Yeah, exactly.
But often when we are on that race of doing, constantly doing, we often get lose the sight of why we're doing what we're doing and where we're going with it, and if we're going in the right place, and if this is the place where we're going is actually the place we want to be. So, and that's the first thing. It's conditioning, yeah. And when you say we can't blame people, of course we can't blame people, but society is also people. So that's why changing one person at a time. I often use the phrase, if you want to change the world, start with the person in the mirror. The only person that you can change is yourself. So you start with yourself, you start with your thought process, with your action, with the way you live your life, and then you start creating that ripple effect, whether you want it or not, but people notice changes that you have in your life. They start asking questions, and then you help other people to do the same. And then slowly, like a domino effect, negative and positive energy, it goes the same way. It's a charge, yeah. So we need energy is neutral, but we can charge it with a negative or we can charge it with a positive. So when you charge with that positive energy more and more people, then slowly we start changing the society. And of course, you say we currently, yes, we live in capitalism, but that also will change eventually. A lot of things are changing, and we have to go through a catalyst. Something has to happen sometimes, whether it's in the body, yeah. So when we're not following the right path, and the body sometimes gives us really strong signals, like it could be a very serious illness, it could be an accident, it could be, change in the relationships or in the family, and that normally is a signal that something is not aligning with where you need to be. So, and the same thing in the world, when the world is going in the wrong place, we're going to go through, we have plenty of things right now happening around the world, but it's not a negative things that they're happening. They are necessary catalysts for change. And change is often painful. Transformation is painful. During the process of transformation, it's very painful. But on the other side, it's new. It's different. And often we are afraid of that transformation path, you can say, or transformation process, because we know it's going to be painful. Change is, we say change is always good because it brings different results, but the process of change, that's uncomfortable. And a lot of people are afraid of that discomfort.
Yeah, which is why I think it's a blessing in disguise that people hit some career crisis or feel like they lost their sense of purpose, because ultimately you can't carry on like this anymore. It's such a trigger to experience this painful change. And it's great that at some point we realize that some of the paths that we took before are no longer serving us. And that could be a catalyst for us to do something differently. There was also one more thought that came up in my mind as you were responding to my question just now, which is kind of the importance of environment that we're in. Someone who used to work in London in a super prestigious job and then got married, had a child, and went to France, to a very small town with a very different kind of people around them. She said that you just don't realize how much you live in a bubble if you live in a big competitive city. She's like, I was never asked once what I do for a living when I moved. And in London, it's kind of probably one of the first questions that comes up in like first 5 minutes. So I guess it's also around kind of people who you're surrounding yourselves with. And here I'm speaking about it like very broadly. For example, if you're following a stable career, corporate career, and if you keep surrounding yourself only with people who share the values of like promotions and kind of buy into this kind of type of path, you will always feel like you are a bit weird, and if you want to do something differently. But if you start surrounding yourselves with people who are doing side hustles, who left corporate journey to become entrepreneurs, for people who generally like were not afraid to pivot their careers from one area to another, you also see that, okay, like what was the norm in that bubble where I used to be, it's actually not the norm universally. And you kind of see that there are other ways and paths to kind of live more freely. And you give yourself more permission to do it if you surround yourself with people who have more flexible attitude, I guess, around what you should be doing.
Absolutely, yes. You know, like that expression, bursting your bubble.
Yeah.
It's very important. Yeah. So traveling and allowing yourself to experience life. So, like, for example, one of the top philosophies in Tantra Yoga, experience comes first, understanding comes second, which is the opposite of how we used to be living our life and taught to live our life. We want to understand before we allow ourselves to experience. So these experiences that you're talking about, whether it's through traveling or through experiencing different things in life, it could be a different hobby. And that hobby would bring you to a different environment where there will be people from different places. And that, again, exposes you to different way of living. So it's good to experience, to understand if the path that you're in is your path. And it doesn't mean that corporate path or, you know, pursuing some serious career it doesn't have a place to be, as long as you are happy when you are in the, you know, one-to-one with yourself. Like when you are left alone with your thoughts, are you happy? Are you enjoying your life?
Exactly, yeah. And as long as you put yourself first, so not see yourself and your path as a means to validate yourself and to prove that everything is fine with you, but as long as you center your life around you and say, okay, does this serve me? Corporate career, side hustle, etc. Like what combination of things make me satisfied, make me, I don't know, happy and joyful when I go to work on Monday morning, rather than prioritizing anything else above this, you know?
Absolutely. And what your motivation is as well. So like, for example, you know, I think less and less money becomes the motivating factor in people choosing their careers or their jobs.
What you observe?
Yeah, that's what, well, I mean, this is what I'm observing. Yes, because you understand that money is not the source of happiness. Having them, yes, that gives you a certain freedom. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have, because obviously even in yoga philosophy, you should always cover your basics. Yeah, you should always have food on your table. You should have roof over your head, clothes, and, you know, means to live your life in the modern society. But it's also, it shouldn't be your main motivation, because there are plenty of examples where people have plenty of money and they're the most unhappy people in the world. So it's coming back to your motivation, what motivates you to do what you do. And I think what I've noticed as well, and lots of companies are changing to that, is what you do has to have a positive impact on the collective. How do we better the world, whether it's through environment, through you know, society, through the mindset, through the way we live. So it's more sustainable, more positive, more supportive, more sharing environment, rather than, you know, it's just my goal. It's me. That's it, or it's my company. So it's more about impact that you create on the world, and I think that gives much more sense of accomplishment, and it helps people to get out of bed feeling happy and excited about the day ahead.
Yeah, and can we go a bit deeper on yoga philosophies that we can all apply in our day-to-day lives to live more authentically and not being distracted by all the things that we just spoke about, such as external factors? And what principle maybe you personally apply in your day-to-day life?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, the principles, I mean, yoga is a way of living. It's a very broad, it's literally, it's a lifestyle. And it's a lifestyle where you start every day with kind of cleaning your thoughts. So you start your day with quieting the mind and understanding what thoughts you have, because first your thoughts is how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life. So that could be through meditation practice, through observation practice. And then you are going out into the world, and the second principle is how you interact with the world. How do you interact with people? Do you make them feel better when you meet with them, or do you make them feel worse? So every word, every action that you perform during the day, it can have a positive or a negative effect on your life or someone else's life. So that's the interaction. It's looking after your physical body. I'm literally just going through yoga limbs. Looking after your physical body. Are you supporting your physical body? Because your physical body is a temple. So you are kind of occupying this temple during this lifetime, and how you support yourself, how you decorate your body, very important, because it's your vehicle that allows you to experience life in this material plane. It's how you connect to your breath, because like I said before, breath is the bridge between internal and external world. So the quality of your breath, the depth of your breath, how often you pay attention to your breath. Because again, if your breath is shallow and fast, you're most likely going to be in a stressed and contracted position. If your breath is more deep and relaxed, then you feel like you are receptive and you are present and you are happy and you're receiving everything that you need to receive from the world around you. It's understanding that everything is interconnected. I mean, more and more people get more interested in quantum physics, and there are, if someone is interested, just read the main principles of the quantum physics, how we are influencing each other no matter where we are. If you, like right now, you and I were talking in one room, and then we're going to go into our separate universes, but some parts of our coexistence will be still influencing us for eternity, because we had this connection, we shared our ideas, we shared our energy. So, and now we're going to be, influencing each other, hopefully in a positive way. So afterwards, so it's understanding that every action has a reaction, and every action has consequences, and taking responsibility for those consequences. So we can't blame anyone. Like even we say we can't blame people, we can't blame society. Blame has nothing to do with it. It's more about constantly self-inquiry and understanding that every action that you take responsibility for that action. You cannot blame others. It's your choice. Every time you have a choice. So, and I think if I was to choose like one thing, just remember that you have choice always. If you choose wrong, choose again. If you chose wrong again, choose again. So it's like constantly, every single second, we choose our path and we choose our destiny through making choice. So we all given will of choosing. So nobody can take that away from us. So choosing and choosing and choosing and choosing. And through the summary of choices, you create your life, you create your reality.
I read one book about career change and it was like an actual scientific study of people who have who were frustrated with what they do, and there were several groups of people. Some people stayed where they were. Some people chose to do something else, but for example, it wasn't the right choice, and then they had to choose again and kind of continue their path this way. Some people made the choice and kind of changed, and it was like the right choice straight away. So out of all of these groups, the people who were least satisfied and after like years of the study were people who have never made the change. So I think it echoes so much with what you've said around the fact that we should always remember that we have a choice, and that even if the choice is not really correct straight away, because it's always a journey, and like if you were stuck somewhere, it's like it may be difficult to find something different straight away. But as long as you kind of are trying and choosing and pivoting and iterating and moving closer to the path that's you feel satisfied about, it's a better journey, and kind of ultimately, likely based on the study, you will be happier versus just staying unsatisfied and feeling like you don't have a choice, feeling like a victim of the situation,
100%. I agree with you, because, I often use the phrase that the only constant in our life is change. So when we resist change, we resist the natural flow of life.
What advice would you give to people who feel stuck? And here, like, let's not kid ourselves. Oftentimes, when you feel stuck, you do emit these negative vibrations. You're frustrated. You're upset. It's like really difficult to feel positive about the situation if you're not liking it. So, what kind of yoga practices, yoga philosophy tips from yoga philosophy can help here? First of all, to change your mindset around the situation, and to kind of finally start acting on it.
Oh, perfect answer. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. If we talk about yoga, when we teach, whatever we teach on the mat, like literally when you are on the mat, is just cultivating the certain mindset to when you are off the mat. So when you get frustrated in the uncomfortable asana, instead of trying to get out of it immediately, breathe through it. Same thing in life. When we feel uncomfortable or we feel in pain, the normal reaction straight away, and I'm talking about obviously, mental pain of pain of change. Yeah. So we're not talking about physical pain that if you hurt yourself. Yeah. So, or like, we're talking about more like a chronical pain or chronical disturbing thought process. Sit down tight, just like you would in asana, and breathe through it and understand why and where this pain is coming from. And breathe through it, allow yourself to process, and then understand what you need to do to change the cause of that pain. Because pain is consequence of something that you are not or are doing. So when you give yourself that time, let's say in yoga practice, a teacher puts you in the asana, instead of trying to get out of it immediately, breathe through it and make any small adjustments that your body needs in order to feel comfortable. Because asana, from Sanskrit language, ancient Indian language, translates as a posture in which body is comfortable. And when I ask my students often, I say, so do you feel comfortable in every asana that we've done today? And they're like, no. So normally the most comfortable asana is shavasana, which is the dead man pose at the end of the class, where everybody's like, relaxing. But when you are going through the process, is that, like idea of understanding that you need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable in order for change to occur.
Thank you. And if people would love to find out more about what you do, retreats, workshops, so that they can really experience it for themselves, where can they find you?
Thank you for asking. Well, of course, the website is www.lovelifebyzimmer.com, or Instagram is our most go-to social media channel. It's Love Life Retreats, because we're teaching people how to love life.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for such a deep conversation. And to your point earlier, I do feel like it has had an impact on me, and I would love to see and to start trying out these practices day to day in our crazy, hectic London life.
Thank you very much, Varia, for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you hear the rhythm, start to move.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Please subscribe to this channel so that more people can find out tips about career change. Share it with a friend who may be looking for a different path in life and feels a bit stuck. And until next time, be shameless.
Let's go.